Today, I am joined by Dr. Katie Williams, a psychologist in general psychology with an emphasis in cognition and instruction, a licensed mental health counselor, and a spiritual law of attraction expert. This conversation really opened my eyes to the energy behind procrastination. I'm not sure I've ever thought of it as a friend, but this conversation has changed my perspective. Dr. Williams has so many great examples of how we can grow and learn from our desire to procrastinate. You can check her out on Instagram at Dr. Williams Podcast. I love how Dr. Williams shares how procrastination is working for us and how we can work with it in return. Here's our conversation. I am really excited to introduce you to Dr. Katie Williams, who is part of the Dr. Williams podcast. I love that we have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. I think where we'll start, though, is where many people who are entrepreneurs start, where you've had a bit of a journey and where you are now maybe isn't where you first began. So can you share some of that journey with us?
Yeah, kind of like not where I thought I would be at all. I mean, most people that spend the majority of their adult life getting degrees end up using their degree, at least that's the hope. But that's kind of not the way it went for me because I've spent years and years studying psychology, and I love psychology. Still to this day, I have a great appreciation for it, and I can see how it led me down my path. I got my doctorate in general psychology, and then I was like, "What am I gonna do with it?" And everybody kept asking me like, "Well, what are you gonna do when you get your doctorate?" And I was like, "I don't know, I don't know." I just knew that I wanted to get it. It was a goal I had for a long time. And then I go ahead and I graduate, and now I'm a doctor, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that feels good." But it wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be. And at the time, I had been reading the Bible. It took me 4 years to read it from beginning to end. And then I had this hunger for more knowledge in a spiritual nature. And that took me down this path of my spiritual awakening. And once my awakening happened, I was like, this is what I want to talk about. I have to talk about spirituality. And then I discovered law of attraction. And so now I kind of melt those all together in a melting pot and talk about mental health and spirituality and law of attraction. And that's what the podcast is focused on.
I love hearing this kind of story because, again, like I said, I, I think when we start out on a path, sometimes we think we have to get to a certain place because that's everyone else's expectation. We've already started on it. We put money into it, whatever it is. And sometimes it can be really hard to veer off of it and allow ourselves that ability to say, like, that isn't my end calling. I can feel that there's something more pulling me. So I love that you're expressing that.
Yeah, sometimes you got to just go where life takes you and it all that other stuff just can't matter otherwise you wouldn't be satisfied.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So today we're going to talk a little bit around the idea of procrastination. And for all of you who have listened to the show, you know we talk about the three Ps: the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the procrastination. And I feel like procrastination sometimes is almost an afterthought where the other two people relate to them and it's like, oh yeah, I do procrastinate, but it's, that's not really my thing, or it's because of the other things or whatever. But I like that we're going to focus on it today because I think it can be looked at from a lot of perspectives, and I like where you're going to take us.
Yeah. Well, procrastination is something we all can relate to, even if we don't define ourselves as a procrastinator. There's at some point in your life, we all procrastinate in some way on something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to procrastination, and I've said this about all three Ps, I think there's areas of each of these that can be detrimental because we can, hold on to them so tightly and identify with them, like you were saying, actually being those things that we don't ever look to grow out of the negative aspects. And I think there's also times where we identify and don't realize there are good parts to each of these. There's part of it that helps to protect us. So where would you like to take procrastination from today?
Well, procrastination, from my viewpoint, is a really good thing. And usually we look at it like this negative thing and something that we have to fight. But the way I understand it vibrationally, spiritually, is that that's wisdom coming to you from your higher self. And it's communication. And what it means is you're trying to take action on something before you're ready to take action. And that's an important thing to realize because when you know that that's what it really is, it gives you a chance to take a step back, give yourself some kindness, allow yourself to line up with the energy that you want to build before you take action on something. It could be something small or something really big. It doesn't really matter. Procrastination always presents in the same way as wisdom that your energy is not lined up.
So tell us more about this because I can kind of see this, but I'm not fully sure if I'm getting it.
Okay, so the opposite of procrastination is inspiration. When you feel inspired, what does that feel like? That feels really good. That feels like an urge to act. Inspired action is when you want to jump into something, right? You're like, okay, just got this great idea and I'm going to go and start acting on this right now. Well, when you feel procrastination, that's literally the opposite of that. And inspired action is also communication from your higher self. But that's communication of, okay, you're on the right track. This is something on your path towards something you want. And that's why it feels really good. And procrastination doesn't really feel good. And really, we don't want to be engaging in anything that doesn't feel good. And I know that's kinda hard to swallow, right? Like, we have dishes and kids and work, and those sometimes feel like we don't want to do them, but we still kind of have to do them. And that comes down to the shoulds and the supposed tos. And I wanted to touch on that because I really believe that the root of procrastination is something you don't wanna do. But why is that even on the radar? Why is this thing, this action that you feel like you need to do, why is it there? Well, it's coming from obligation and shoulds and supposed tos. And those things are brought to us from pressure from others. That's learned behavior. That's not something that you know as a child. It's something you learn as a child that I'm supposed to be doing this, or I should do this, or I'm obligated to do this. And those are the things that really are not serving you because you have your own inner guidance, and that's your emotion. And if it feels good, you know you're on track. And if it feels bad, you're off track. So we want to follow those feel good things and not give in to this pressure that has been learned. Because even though it started off from someone else, then we internalize it. And now it's becoming a part of who we are. And now we're self pressuring ourselves to do these things. But there's really only two reasons why we ever do anything. The first one is because we want to do it and it feels good. The second reason is because we want to avoid negative consequences. And that's usually why we are feeling procrastination, because it's something we don't really want to do, but we feel like we need to because, this, that, and the other thing. So that's kind of my basis understanding of procrastination.
This is super interesting. So, for example, if we had, something that we needed to do in the day that we don't particularly like to do, but we think that we need to do it, should do it, it's something, that we're putting off. Is there a point where procrastination is not serving us because we keep putting something off, or is it that it's telling us something that we need to learn before we do these things?
I would say it's always communication. Procrastination is always a signal of your energy's not lined up. Everything in this entire universe is vibrational. And we're always emitting a vibration and then receiving a vibration. And you can't do both at the same time. You're either transmitting or you're receiving. And the way law of attraction works is what you transmit, they turn it around and send it back to you and you receive it. So, say you're sitting in this feeling of procrastination, which feels really icky. It feels like frustration. It feels like fatigue. It feels like I just don't want to deal right now. That's really negative. And if you sit with that negativity, you're emitting that, and now you're going to be getting it back. So, the important thing to do when procrastination is there is, first of all, recognize it as your friend. This is not something that you need to resist and push against. The resistance is already there. That's why you feel procrastination. So, fighting against it is just adding more resistance to it. But instead, just embrace, okay, now I understand. My energy's not lined up yet. So, I need to do some energy work here and start to feel better before I take action. And that's really what it comes down to. As a general rule, feel good first, then go do what you need to do.
For the months of July, August, and September, we are focusing on being a woman entrepreneur. I know personally that along my journey, there have been some amazing coaches who have helped me figure out exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to look and feel. Sometimes the overwhelm was crazy, and I needed that outside view to help simplify what I needed to focus on and to keep me accountable. My favorite thing about working with a coach is that I get more done in less time. Whether it is learning to manage my time, having step-by-step actions to complete a goal, or having someone to help me overcome limiting beliefs and mindset blocks, the coaches I have worked with have been a huge part of my success. Maybe you're looking for a coach or are curious if it's something you need. Because I believe so highly in helping women on their journey, I want to offer you something special. Each month, from July through September, I'm offering 30-minute strategy calls for free to the first 6 women who book a call with me. Each month, 6 new spots will open, and I hope you will take advantage of this time to get clear on where you are and where you want to go. I love learning about the women in my community, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what you want to create. Book your call by clicking on the link in the show notes, or go to my podcast page on my website, pursueprogress.com/podcast. These 6 spots are first come, first serve, so don't wait. Now, back to the podcast. And that's really the thing that when I sit and think, even right now, of anything that I've procrastinated this week, it really is a feeling first. It's a feeling of discomfort, of, like you said, frustration, or like, yeah, it always is a very negative feeling and a not good feeling. And so for me, lots of the time it's getting up, moving around, thinking about the end result, starting to put myself into the perspective of, that I am capable, right? Because sometimes it's just the thoughts I tell myself about my ability or whatever it is. And by the time that that has moved the energy, the feeling has totally changed. And I'm looking forward to getting it done.
I love that. That's the energy work I'm talking about because now you are tending to your vibration and you're actually lining up with wanting to take that action. And then when you feel better, then doing it feels satisfying. But if you act before you do that, then that creates more problems. Can you think about a time where you jump into doing something that you really don't want to do, and then it seems like an avalanche of bad things happen? Like you stub your toe, you drop a plate, like it's just one thing after the other because that's the vibration that you are lined up with. And then even getting done doesn't really feel satisfying. It's a little bit of relief, but it's not as satisfying as it could be if you wanted to do it, if you felt lined up with wanting to do it.
This is so in alignment with what I talk about when I'm saying to especially my female entrepreneurs, when you try to force things to happen, when you
Mm.
are trying to push through that procrastination, when you're trying to just make it, you know, get it over with because you need to, or you think you have to get it done today, or it's on the list, or whatever it is, the feeling of the day, the feeling of working even for the next day, the feeling of your goal that you had set, all of those things that should be good and exciting and things that you look forward to, it actually becomes a bit of a snowball and can impact like the rest of your work week, your month, even maybe forever, because you have continued in that uncomfortable, not aligned, just really the wrong energy to bring as you're trying to create something.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing. We're all creating our realities, whether we are doing it deliberately or by default. And we really want to be doing it deliberately because that's how we get what we want. But let's talk about obligation for a minute because, and women in as a general rule, feel a lot of obligation to take care of other people. And we do that for our families, we do that for our coworkers. We're caregivers, and that's what we do. And we get depleted doing that if our energy's not lined up with it feeling good to do it. So let's just say that a certain family member calls and they need help with something. And it's kind of on your nerves. You're like, ugh, you feel obligated to do it. I don't really want to do this right now because I have all these other things I have to do, and it doesn't feel good to do it. So you still feel the obligation, so you do it anyway. And the whole time you're doing it, you resent the person, you're frustrated, you're thinking about all the other things you're not doing. That is literally causing relationship issues with that person. And this is important to understand because the energy that you are aligned with is not the relationship result that you want, because this is somebody you care about. And you wouldn't feel obligated if you didn't care about this person. So obviously, you want to help them, but because you didn't deal with the energy and your vibration first, now the end result in that relationship is issues in the relationship. And the next time they come to you with this kind of thing, it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. So the best thing to do, instead of just jumping in and helping them because you feel obligated, is to just say, I absolutely want to help you with that. I have some other things I have to do, or I need to do a few things first, and then I'm going to get to you because I care about you and I definitely want to help you. And then you do that first. Take care of you first and line it up, and then go do what you need to do.
So, a question I have for you then is, what if you have been going down this path of procrastination over and over again, maybe in a certain area of your business, maybe a certain area of your personal life, whatever it is, and you've created a situation where, and I think we all probably have at least one, where you feel the feeling like, if you know you have to do that thing, it's almost like you feel it the night before, or you feel it knowing that it's sitting out there, that this impending
Yeah, like it's
doom.
looming. Yeah.
Exactly. That this thing is there, but you've done this so many times that you've cemented it in really good. So
Mhm.
can we change this energy? Is this something that's going to take a long time? What do we do when it's something that we really have hunkered down and made that trench, as far as our neural pathways, all of those things, and have created this feeling that's really hard for us to break out of?
Yeah, I think that that's probably where a lot of people live because most people I've realized are not enjoying their life. And that's why we're here. We are here for the satisfaction of living a physical experience. So, yes, absolutely, you can turn that around. That is your dominant state, is one of wellness. And either you're pinching that off and it's not being received, or you're opening it up and you are receiving it. So, if you're not feeling like things are good and you're feeling like you're pushing against stuff, you are forcing things, you're doing a lot of efforting, and it's a struggle, that means you're pinching it off. And this comes down to a whole personal growth, a lifestyle change. I promote meditation in a really big way. I think that that's really important for aligning with your higher self. And when you do that, you start receiving information that is more about inspired action, and you will decrease procrastination just by doing that one thing. But the other thing is just an awareness, us having this conversation and putting it out there and people understanding the purpose that procrastination serves in our lives and aligning with it as a friend and not a foe is huge. That's allowing us to recognize the communication we have with our inner being, and that can change everything for you. And at that point, once you recognize it, and then be kind to yourself, allow yourself to get off the hook. You don't have to do anything. You really don't. There's really nothing too negative that's going to happen if you take care of yourself first. And everything else lines up after you start doing that, in my opinion.
I love that we're talking about this because it's one more thing that shows that we can take control of our lives. I think often we're in victim mode. Often we feel like we can't change things. It's just who we are, or it's the hand we've been dealt. And this is just one more place where even procrastination, where we feel like maybe a little bit out of control in that area, no, like you actually can work with those feelings and make these changes.
I agree. I agree. Actually, one of the biggest human misconceptions is that our self-worth is measured by action, but that's not the truth. The truth is you are worthy because you are. We are all worthy, and that is a given. We never intended to create through action. That's a very human learned thing that we come in not knowing that. We know that we want to create. Our intention is to create through vibrational offering, but we learn growing up this humanness of action. And, we say, well, what do you do? Hi, my name is so and so, and this is what I do. And we normally say our job, or I'm a mother, or whatever, it is. But that isn't really the case. The self worth is there. You don't have to take action on anything in order to prove that to yourself or to anyone else.
So I have a question for you that I ask every guest that comes on the show. When it comes to the three P's, which are people pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination, which one do you relate to the most?
I would have to say that I relate to all three of them. The one that I most relate to, more so in the past. Since my spiritual awakening, I feel like I have kind of softened a bit, but I definitely felt that I was a perfectionist for a very long time. I felt like I had a type A personality, did well in school, always wanted to do the best at everything that I did. And that's definitely softened since I have connected with my higher self and realized my worth and that I don't have to be perfect at everything. The truth is, I am perfect in my imperfection.
I love that you shared that. Thank you. And many times when we go through life knowing and recognizing things about ourselves and are willing to grow and learn, things change so much. And we can see those patches where this is where I mostly gravitated. And then this is where I tended to go to. And then this is what I'm working on now. And so I love hearing from other women what they see in their lives. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If listeners want to find you, and of course, I'm going to put all of the contact information for Dr. Williams into the show notes, but if they would like to Google you, find you, look you up right now, what's the best place for them to look?
Yeah. So I have a website, www.drwilliamspodcast.com, and you can find everything there. I do offer one-on-one law of attraction coaching sessions, and I also have a Patreon. So if you don't want to pay the fee to have a one-on-one session, I have different tiers on Patreon, and I actually have a monthly lottery where everybody is entered, and if I draw your name, then you get to have a session with me. We can focus on whatever means the most to you and try to help manifest that in your life. And I'm on most of the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. I'm on them all.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Make sure that you reach out and find Dr. Williams because, again, this is one more person that can help support you, can help you move forward. And I think this is the beauty of connecting with different communities, different women that are giving out to the world at large. And I think this is a beautiful part of podcasts is that we are able to find spaces where we feel good and we feel supported and there are people. So thank you for being one of those.
Yeah, thank you for being one of those. And I am so glad that we were able to collaborate together. This is the best part, being able to find other women doing similar things and sharing who we are with the world and what our message is.